One of the biggest threats in this country is an educated, empowered Black woman. Don't lower yourself. Don't feel that you need to cower in a corner or be anything less than you are. Always understand that being polite and confident and strategic will get you a long way, because they don't have to love you. They don't have to like you. They just need to respect you.
Welcome, everyone. I am Kimberly Swett. My pronouns are she and hers, and I'm very happy for you guys to be here today. So our conversation is going to be about fundraising when you're a person of color, when you're a woman of color. So I've been in the fundraising field for over 15 years. So I'm very excited to moderate this panel today with Brandi and Akilah, who are going to introduce themselves. So thank you guys so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for the invitation and for the introduction. Very glad to be here. My name is Brandi Woods. My pronouns are she and her. I have been in fundraising, political fundraising, for about 8, almost 9 years at this point. And I am currently at the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee.
Hello, everyone. I am Akilah Ensley. I have been in fundraising now for about 9, almost 10 years. Kind of crazy to say that. And I am the founder and president of Invictus Strategy Group.
Wonderful. So I'm going to start out with our first question of the evening. I want to know, what is your story? How did you get involved in progressive fundraising? And why is it important to have representation in the fundraising space? And Akilah, we'll start with you since you just introduced yourself.
All righty. Basically, I got involved with fundraising. I'd been in politics. It's been about 16 years now. However, I realized on the fundraising side of things that I enjoyed it much more than anything else. Field was not my ministry. And I just wanted to lean into something where I could be more personable and really build strong and authentic relationships. So I got into fundraising and really just spent some time and energy basically just building rapport and also figuring out why it worked. And one of the key reasons that I did get involved was because I also did not see enough of us in the room. And I felt that it was important that Black and Brown people and Black and Brown women had the same opportunities as our counterparts to be seen in that space, and also to build those meaningful donor relationships. And that's been really the backbone of how we've built, our company so far, and why, I stick with it, because we need to be in every room. 96% of women vote Democratic, and we are the backbone of the party. And therefore, we need to be represented on all aspects of the campaign front and how these operations run.
That is wonderful. And I love that you said that you wanted more people like us to be seen in that space. Because even when I met you guys today, I was thinking, why don't I know them? Like, we're in the same space. All right. So with that, Brandi, could you answer the question for us?
Yeah, so my background is a little bit non-traditional. This is actually my second career. I started off in healthcare, and if you had asked me 12, 15 years ago, I was going to be COO of a healthcare system. That was it, full stop. Politics and fundraising was just not on my radar whatsoever. Life happened. I was laid off from a healthcare company, and I'm going to make a long story really short. I was laid off from a healthcare company, and I went home that afternoon. I got a sheet of paper out and a pen. I was like, just dump your thoughts on here. There's no order. Just put them on the sheet of paper. One thing that kept popping up was politics, and in many different facets, whether it was lobbying, whether it was policy and things of this nature. These are things I had interest in, but my focus was in healthcare, and I could not figure out how to bridge that gap. Through my journey, I had an opportunity to attend a training hosted by Stacey Abrams. And in this training, it was for anyone who had no campaign experience all the way up until elected officials. So we all came together, and this was catered to people of color. So we all came together for this training. And that was a pivotal point for me at that moment in time. In the training, I realized that my current skill sets translated mostly with fundraising. And I was actually excited. I wanted to learn more and like, what is this all about? And so through that, I had the opportunity to get my foot in the door. And that's how I started my career in politics and in fundraising.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. So I'm going to start with you, Brandi, for our next question. So our next question is, I always like to say there's no fun in fundraising. And no matter how you look at it, it's scary to ask for money. And this particularly carries throughout communities of color. And for those who've never fundraised or a little bit shy about fundraising, how do you build the confidence to do a hard ask? And how do we get rid of that taboo of there's harm in fundraising?
I think that the biggest thing to realize in fundraising is you're not asking for personal money. You're asking for money for a campaign, for a mission, for a cause, but the message will be carried through a person when they're elected. And so I think that's the biggest hurdle. You're not asking a friend for $5. It's just asking someone to support a campaign, support your candidate. I think in regards to a hard ask, we have to do it, and we have to do it early. It takes more effort, particularly for candidates of color, to get the full amount of an ask. So you're going to have to ask more than once. And so go ahead and make that full ask. And as they kind of say, can't do the full amount, say, okay, I'll take X amount, say it's $1,000, and then I can circle back to that same person later on, but have a plan in place to do that. But in regards to making a hard ask, you just have to prepare yourself and to do it.
Wonderful. Akilah?
So to piggyback what you said, definitely have that negotiation tactic in place. I've always liked asking for money. It's one thing my father always told me and never had a problem with. So it's like, you just have to have the confidence going in, even if you're walking in and it's like faux and you're scared to death, just know that you're doing it for a greater benefit, something larger than yourself. And asking for money with candidates of color, yes, it is harder to get that full ask. People, I'd say they give you sometimes pity money. You know, it's like you have a donor meeting. You meet with someone who you know has the capacity because you see they're giving both for the state and at the federal level. They're maxing out to 30, candidates in that cycle. You've already seen it on the report. And they're like, okay, I'll give you $1,000. Okay, great. That's fantastic, but I need a full 2,900 or whatever that state maximum is. Would you mind doing that today? And can we touch base with you at the end of the quarter? Like, always just have a way to overcome that objection in your mind, because it's our job to be problem solvers. At the end of the day, it is our job to raise as much money as possible to move not only their message, but voters to the poll on their behalf. And as far as disarming the taboo of fundraising, I always say keep it light and keep it fun. In conversation, if you can just be, again, authentic, it's going to resonate. And really quickly, and then I'm going to be quiet. Research your donors. Know who you're sitting down with. If you can find a common thread with that person, it's an amazing way to just disarm them and put them a little bit more at ease with the conversation from the onset.
Very good. So I want to highlight a couple of things that you said that I think are very important. Confidence. You have to have the confidence when you are going in and asking money, because people can tell when you're not confident about it, and they may not give you money just because you're not confident and your ask is kind of soft. So I think that's really important that you said about the confidence. And one thing I want to add to this conversation is, when you start calling donors, you always start with your friends and family. So that way, when you start with your friends and family, not only are they more likely to give to you, you can practice your ask. So when you get those people who really don't know, the people you have really find a common thread with, you have that ask perfected. So thank you for that. So the next question, anyone can answer first. So when we're looking at donors, there are no donors absolutely alike. And as a woman of color in politics, trying to build networks for herself within a campaign, what's the one piece of advice that staffers need to take into account when building those networks and establishing those strong donor relations? And before someone answers, I do want to say that Allison from NDTC is dropping resources in the chat, so make sure you guys check that out. All right, someone answer, please.
I would say one of the key things with building that network, the one piece of advice I would offer is always talk to everyone. You never know who in that room is going to be a high net worth donor or someone that can truly invest and bundle for you. So no conversation is too big or too small. Always carry yourself with confidence and just bring it, because they're going to notice that. You always want to make sure you get their business card, or I think it's called Bing. I have it on my phone, or a Blink. blink, but it's a really great QR code, but always have your information handy. Never just let them offer. You always get their info so you can follow up and always have that opening conversation.
So I want to ask you a question. You mentioned Blink. Tell us a little bit how more that works and how you've been able to use it with fundraising.
I personally am obsessed with it because I don't really carry a card that much, but it's BLINQ. And basically, oh, you can't really see my screen, but it pulls up a QR code that you can leverage. And then I have my logo, a picture, and all of my information. So they basically take a quick picture. I'm not a picture, but like it's the QR, they hit the link and it automatically pulls up their contacts and all they have to do is save it. So pretty much during Congressional Black Caucus Week, I had 4 clients in town at once and it was all hands on deck. And basically for any event that we walked into, all of the staff had that on their phones. And I literally was watching them in receptions, like as they were with candidates, just kind of sharing that. And then they would very quickly, collect it. And then they would take that person's phone and actually send them a quick text message. That way they could go ahead and start that dialogue or send them a quick email. And it took, 30 to 45 seconds. It wasn't super difficult and it was just very easy to use. And it's something that I find I personally like a little bit better as a young person. I love my cards, but when I'm talking to younger donors, they don't have them. They have something on their phone or they're like, can I just airdrop you a contact? So I found this to be really useful.
Wonderful. Brandi.
One thing that Akilah mentioned that I think that is very important is just being your authentic self. And so as you're building your own personal relationships, this will help you just growing, regardless of who you're working with. And also finding a common thread with whomever you're speaking with and being just genuine with that person in the conversation. And then one of the other things is you collect the contact information and things of that nature, but you have to follow up and you should follow up in a reasonable amount of time. If you really want to build a relationship, make yourself assertive in following up. It was really great to meet you at this reception. Would love to grab coffee. It was really great to meet you. Would love to continue the conversation. I'm adding you to my contacts.
So by your definition, what do you consider to be a reasonable amount of time?
If you can do it the same day, amazing. But definitely within 24-hour window, I think that is appropriate. But things happen, life happens, and especially if you're at an event that is multiple days, such as the Congressional Black Caucus, make sure you're still following up. If you meet them on Tuesday, can we follow up by no later than Friday? But just setting a reasonable time on your calendar, make a calendar invite for yourself. I need to follow up with my contacts that I met on this day or whatever it may be, and go ahead and send them a message.
So let me ask you another question that made me think. So let's say we met and you want to follow up with me. You sent me that email same day and I have not responded, let's say in a couple of days. When do you follow up or do you follow up?
I would follow up. I would follow up in a week. So sorry, Kimberly, that we were not able to connect. Still would love to have that coffee with you. Does this date and time work? If not, will you send me times that work best for you?
Outstanding. All right, so next question. It's going to be a story time. I want you guys to tell us about a difficult situation you've been in with a donor and how you navigated that as a woman of color.
I'll jump in. I had a situation fairly recently. I was working with a candidate and she had a donor, which was a family member who offered to bundle. This family member offered to bundle $10,000. I was like, that's amazing. What is our plan? How are we going to get the money? Spoke with the family member, the bundler, and tried to run through a plan. This particular bundler did not want to share his list. He didn't want to share anything. He was like, I got it. Like, I'll get the money in. And I was like, okay, great. So he decided he wanted to have an event. And I asked him, what do you need from me? And I was making sure that I was very present and being helpful. When it came down to him having the event, there weren't as many people to RSVP and like the dollars were not there. So we did have the event. It just was not at the $10,000 mark. I followed up with him and I explained to him, these are the reasons that I'm asking for these items by a certain time, because we have things we need to cover on the campaign. So please let me help you here. We were able to to raise most of the money, but we were not able to get all of it. But it took me explaining to the bundler that I don't want your list. I'm really genuinely just trying to help the candidate. Like, we have a common goal of getting her elected. And so how can I best work with you to get this done? But that was probably one of the more difficult situations that I've dealt with recently.
Did the donor ever provide the list?
He did provide lists, and that's something I should have touched on. So thank you so much. He did provide lists. And what I realized that he was not extremely tech savvy. And so I offered to send the emails and the text messages, and that's all he needed. And that's how we were able to recruit or to bring in most of the money.
So my story is a little different, but I literally just went through that, Brandi. So I totally feel your pain. As a woman of color, we come across probably everyone from mid-level grassroots to very high net worth, depending on the race and who you're working with. A difficult situation that I had was I have a former client who ran into some legal issues. And there was a donor that was involved as a part of that scenario. And I have had to continue working with them over the last couple of years. And it was kind of a hump to overcome, and really just having very open and honest conversation about, answering their questions, why they were, engaging and why they were brought into that, and then finding a way to move past that. So one thing I will always share is you have got to stand true to who you are, your morals and your values. And you have to be able at times to have very open and honest conversations with your donors, especially when you know that you're going to have to go back to them time and time again, depending on who they are and how they may be progressive donors in the space, and also their donor advisors. You all will learn, if you're dealing with folks at a certain level, they have a gatekeeper. And that gatekeeper will block you from everything, and you will have to find new doors and dig holes and crawl over walls to get to them. However, it was one of those pieces that I almost felt was compromising. And I really just had to be resourceful and very persistent in my conversations with them to kind of rebuild those relationships, even though it was not at all my fault. It was the fact that I was a part of that campaign and running the finance operation when that occurred. And just helping them rebuild that trust in the process, and just really working again to overcome those objections, and being a solution maker for them, and helping them also continue to give and support with candidates and organizations that we work with.
Thank you so much for that. So 2 things I want to highlight from you guys' responses is you definitely need to level set the donor's expectation, especially when you're dealing with a fundraiser event like Brandi. Like, you have to let them know, because you're not giving the list, this could, delay funds coming in or guests coming. So I think it's important to keep the donor involved along in the process, especially when we're talking about fundraising events. And we know fundraising events could be hit or miss. And I think it's important also what Akilah said about being open and honest and having hard conversations. You may not want to, because you want to keep that good relationship, but also a part of keeping that good relationship is being open and honest. All right, so before we go to our last question, I want our participants to make sure that you're using the question box and asking questions while you have these subject matter experts here. And if we've had anything in this discussion that has piqued your interest, or you have more questions about, please put those questions in the question box. Or if you have any burning questions about fundraising or working in politics, please give us those questions and we'll be happy to answer them for you. All right, so last question. What are your 3 best practices to ensure our learners meet their fundraising goals?
Really quickly, 3 best practices. I actually wrote these down. Trust your process that you have in place. Know that you were hired as an expert. Most campaign managers have a specialty. It's not always going to be finance and fundraising. So they are going to be looking at you to really kind of lean in and run that. So trust your gut on that. Work with your team, build a strong team around you, and always set realistic goals. I don't care how much that candidate is like, no, we need $10 million. No, sir. No, ma'am. That sounds fantastic. In theory, you're going to do X for this race. This is what we've seen historically. This is where you are so far. That's going to always help you be more confident and comfortable in what it is you're doing. And then it's a good accountability measure. So as you are saying, like, this is where we are to goal, when you set up your internal finance plans, et cetera, and you have all your spreadsheets, you can say, here's what I'm forecasting. Here's where we are. Here are the percentages. It just helps you just stay very focused and organized on what you're doing. And then it kind of lets them also know where they are so that they can level set with themselves. Because sometimes when people run, especially first-time candidates, they have a different idea of what they want to see compared to what it actually takes to get there. And finally, I would say call time. It is necessary. I don't care how you have to bribe them or what it takes. You lock them in that room, you find a way that it works for you and for that candidate so that you can be accommodating to what their needs are to get it done. But you cannot do these races. We cannot raise these dollars without them making those dials. They must be speaking to donors and to stakeholders. They do not want to just talk to us, and they will tell you that. So I can definitely say, just encourage them. I don't care how hard it is. I had somebody who used to leave every day, and I would follow him home and basically go knock, and his wife would let me in. And I'd be like, I've got the book, I've got laptop, and here's your work phone. Let's go. You just have to be persistent and make sure you hold them accountable with that.
I would say get organized. Fundraising can happen so quickly, and you think it's moving really slow, and all of a sudden the floodgates open, and like you're trying to call a host back, but you need to get prepped for call time, and you need to get set up for an event. So things happen quickly. But if you have a plan in place of how you want to stay organized, it just makes the whole program run so much smoother. Also, I would say, same thing Akilah was saying, set clear and precise goals. What is your goal for the month? What is your goal for the day? What is your goal for the week? But just have that plan in place so that you and the candidate and the whole team knows this is the goal and this is what we're inching towards. I would also say planning ahead. Fundraising money doesn't just fall from the sky. It's due from call time, number one, but it's due from conversations and a lot of things that are moving, or other people speaking on your behalf and people reaching out to speak with your candidate. So just having a plan in place, and you do that with your finance plan. And if it's not updated, you don't know where you are. And so I will use your finance plan like your bank account, because when you call the bank or you check the ATM, you want to know exactly how much money you have in there. So use your finance plan the same way. When you click on it, you need to know every moment in time, how much money do we have to spend?
Very good. So I want to highlight two of the things that you guys said. You guys are giving such great, fantastic information. Organization is so key because you deal with lots and lots of call sheets. So you have to have a system, whether it's a binder system or a stacking system. It's so important to have it organized and know how to get to it in the drop of a second, because somebody could call back. You need to put a note there. So organization is a fantastic advice to give. And then also trusting your process. It's kind of a funny story. So I was working on a campaign. They had a finance director before me. So I came in after the primary, and the candidate had run for office before, and the campaign manager was brand new, and they would question me on my process. And I guess I said a lot. This is how I do it. This is how it's done. And the campaign manager was like, "Who are you, Montel Jordan?" So like every time I hear that song, I just laugh and think about like how I was such a stickler for my process. So, all right. So I do see 4 questions. So
may I add one thing?
Absolutely.
I'm so sorry, but one thing, and I know this will be a 4th best practice. If you are in the position to build a quality team around you, find good people to be your deputies, find good people to be your finance assistants, your call time managers, your researchers, and your data entry folks, and empower them to do their work. I encourage everyone, empower them, because if they have ownership of the process and in the campaign and organization, they are going to bust their butts, and it's going to help everything move so much more smoothly, and you'll be able to build a really strong and cohesive team. So always empower them, communicate with them, and tell them how much you appreciate them.
Yes, I agree with that. When you have staffers and volunteers, always, always, always make sure that they know how much you appreciate them and thank them. I remember the first campaign I worked on, and everybody was so appreciative and so nice and so thankful that I was there to help. That really made an impression on me, especially with that being the very first campaign that I worked on. All right, so we have 6 questions in the box. So let's answer them. So the very first question we're going to answer is from Vanessa. Thank you. How did you handle the label of being a pushy Black woman?
Vanessa, you just roll with it. One thing that you have to understand is like one of the biggest threats in this country is an educated, empowered Black woman. And that just comes with the territory. I would say, don't lower yourself. Don't feel that you need to cower in a corner or be anything less than you are. Always understand that being polite and confident and strategic will get you a long way. But people are going to say it. You just have to prove, every time you walk in that room that you're about your business, because they don't have to love you. They don't have to like you. They just need to respect you.
Brandi, did you want to take that?
Yeah, I was going to say, I would totally agree with everything Akilah said. And the other thing, depending on the type of relationship, if we need to get to the bottom of someone referring to you as a pushy Black woman, maybe you're just being direct and you're doing your job. And like, this has nothing to do on a personal level, opposed to you attempting to help a candidate. And so I think that is important if it's worth going into that conversation with someone. And I just lost my second thought. So that's okay.
It'll come back to you.
It will come back to me.
If it comes back, just let it hop back in. All right, so let me read our next question. Thank you, ladies, for those responses. All right, from Josie. What resources helped you get up to speed on the terminology and finance laws, if any? That's a fantastic question.
So that is a full can of worms. One of the key things when you are working on federal races, the glory and blessing in that is everything is uniform across the board. When you're dealing with states, it gets a little hairy because every state has different finance laws. Like Virginia and Florida are the wild, wild west. You can take as much money from wherever you want, doesn't matter. But when you're dealing with other states, you have more strict rules. Build a good rapport with your compliance person, know them, talk to them, love them. If you ever question anything, put them on an email with the folks on your team, the senior leadership that need to be CC'd. I say always CC them because that information is a good nugget for them as well, because they're also going to be talking to stakeholders and also other donors, and leverage them. And just do a little research. Every state has their elections website where you can find their campaign finance laws. Find the book. And also when you're dealing with major cities, I did the New York mayoral, and that is a completely different ball of wax than anything I've ever experienced. So just make sure, compliance, educate yourself. It never hurts to ask a question, especially if you don't know.
Definitely agree with that. Also set yourself, if you're going to work on a federal campaign, set yourself up for alerts from the FEC so that when new articles come out, you can read those and glance at those at your leisure. And also working with state parties, one thing that I think a lot of them offer webinars, or they offer up-to-date training courses in regards to the state parties or to the state's finance laws. Excuse me. You should join those if you can. Usually they're an hour. I would just go join those or jump on the Zoom link and just, even if you think you know all the up-to-date regulations, jump on and make sure that you have all the information that you need.
Sometimes that'll be the treasurer training at those various states that the parties do, which can be very helpful.
I want to add 2 things to that. I always try to encourage people to hire someone who specializes in campaign compliance. And as you said about field, which field is not my ministry either, neither is compliance, and I want to be nowhere near it. So I encourage that. And also, if you're on a smaller race and there's not a budget to hire somebody who specializes in compliance, if you know someone in this state that also does fundraising, I would resource them too. All right. So next question from Kimberly. How do you convince people to give when your candidate is in a primary?
I would just say know your facts. Like if you have a poll that you can share that is public, definitely share that. Or if your candidate's comfortable with sharing some inside information, you can say, hey, I'm going to give you some information. It's not public, but I think this will help you inform to make your decision. I would also tout any endorsements that your candidate may have. That would be important to the donor that you're speaking with. In addition to what is the strategy to win this campaign, people want to know what are my dollars going towards? Is it going to additional staff? Or are you going to buy yard signs? Like, how are you communicating to the constituents to get your message across?
Definitely everything that Brandi just shared. One key thing in a primary is like Rolodexing. Rolodex the heck out of their network. Start at home, as I think we mentioned earlier. Having all of these polling pieces is fantastic, but if they are a new candidate or they are new to the space, being able to start kind of locally with them so that they can build their confidence, you feel more comfortable. It's going to be a little bit easier, hopefully, to get money in the door, which then helps, because one of the key things in a primary is showing what you've raised and, being able to go to folks and saying, hey, this is where we are in the polls. We've also brought in our first $250,000. We are working diligently to clear the field so that we don't have anybody running against us, or it gives you a good comparison point with other candidates that may be in the race. You can show yourself really kind of reaching higher standards, higher goals, and, just kind of leaning into that. It's been an interesting cycle. So I understand that that's a thing, but definitely always Rolodex, leverage the resources available and the information and, polling memos, et cetera.
Outstanding. Next question from Erica. What are the different fundraising strategies to employ for a candidate? It scrolled up on me. Okay, so what are the different fundraising strategies to employ for a candidate/campaign versus an organization?
Well, that kind of depends. So if you're dealing with a C4, and this is where it kind of gets tricky. If you're working with IEs and C4s, it's completely different than working with nonprofit, which is going to be like your strict C3, which is a completely different bubble. That's going to be your major gifts and development work. That's going to employ much longer strategies to build greater relationships with donors when you're dealing in the C3 space. When you are working with candidates and campaigns, a lot of people know why you're calling. They know very quickly what you are calling for, and that goes for C4 and also the PACs and the IEs. They know that you're calling on behalf of this candidate, that you are calling for money, and they're normally either going to give you a very strict yes or no answer. I think that's something that is kind of like the hustle and bustle of working in finance and campaigns. It's very transactional at times. It's very fast paced, unlike a C3 entity that's going to be more long term and you're working for larger gifts. It's not just, $2,000 to $3,000. You're making $5,000 to, $50,000 to $100,000 plus asks. So it takes a little bit of a different strategy in donor mapping, et cetera.
Echoing everything Akilah said, and I think that in regards to if you're fundraising for an organization, especially like for a C3, do your research, know kind of what they want and kind of what you can offer and those things of that nature. You should do your research for candidates as well, but you're asking for a larger amount and you really have to explain to them, what are these dollars going for? People can walk away from $2,900, $1,000 or something like that. But when you're asking someone for 10K and 20K, like they want to know, what is this money going towards?
Always be transparent. Just to piggyback on that, always be transparent. One thing that I know quite a few organizations and donors learned from 2020 cycle, a lot of money was put into certain candidates and organizations, and there was no transparency in how that money was spent. And they have basically shut down, and some folks did not get the resources that they needed this cycle to be successful. And they have to kind of walk that back. So always remember transparency, and just the larger the ask, the more information the donor is going to require.
Thank you for those responses. So next question, how can we tap into the network of finance directors?
I think one of the key things when it comes to women of color, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think we have like an organized network of like engagement at all. or at least, whether it be some way that we can all find each other. Every time I find new Black women in finance, I'm very excited because I was like, where'd you come from? Like, I had no idea you existed. This is fantastic. I think you can start with the three of us. I'm sure they're going to be providing emails and, other information. So Tracy, please feel free to lean in here. If you are doing this as a consultant and not just working as an employee on a race, there are some really good professional fundraising networks that you can register to be a part of or become licensed, depending on the state that you're working in, and nationally, which is like political consultant organizations, and it all just kind of bundles underneath and within that. So I would say, and I'll get your information. There are a couple that I can't think of offhand, but I'm more than happy to send them to you. I think a couple I'm a member of and I should know them, but I don't. So I will make sure to share that.
I would totally agree. And then also, if you're a part of an event that is benefiting or supporting multiple candidates and you meet someone, meet another finance director in that same space, grab their information and say, hey, can we connect later? Just in case we both have the same question or just want to chit chat, just want to get to know you. I know this is just as important. This is part of building your network. So as you're meeting people and you're staying connected, you have LinkedIn. And so get connected there and like check in on other finance directors and say, hey, how are you doing? Just wanted to check in, haven't talked in a while. What are you doing nowadays? And to build your own network. And I think that is a way to start building out. And then maybe one day you can start a network for us to all join. That'll be exciting.
Thank you for those answers. I think that's fantastic. I know NDTC on the website, us that are trainers, you can look on the website and see, who's a person of color, and you can see our information there. So that's another resource. Yeah, but it's several organizations like the panel said that you can reach out to and kind of look and see who is a fundraiser of color. Great questions. All right, so we have any tips for navigating and breaking through nationwide donor fatigue that we're facing? While it's getting better, still seeing a lot of burnout among donors. So how would you guys handle that?
The more established donor networks and the donors that we go to every single cycle, they are becoming a little bit more picky. Some of them are just flat out saying no, like I'm sitting this cycle out, or I'm only giving to this type of candidate, federal races only, focusing on these states. And that is something that it's going to happen. One thing that I can say consistently is we always have an election. Every 2 years, every other year, every single year. It may be an off year overall, but there's going to be a governor's race, or there are other statewide, or there's local elections that may be taking place. So I would say figuring out new ways to leverage them, whether it be asking them to potentially bundle if they do have an interest, they just don't necessarily want to give as much money. How can you get them to engage in that way? Maybe it's asking them to anchor an event or making them co-host to an event that you have taking place. Always remember to make it sound as if it's, sometimes their idea, and that they're doing a really amazing thing for the state or for, whatever the race may be or the candidate. And also always be resourceful and look for new donor networks. One thing I found, which they are also having some burnout, but like the Silicon Valley network, we have like these amazing young professional networks that have all this money. They just don't know how to utilize it. And never forget that all politics are local. So going back to grassroots engagement and low dollar fundraising, it can always yield, because those are folks that can join as a recurring donor every single month. They can help you build out the baseline of your budget that can sometimes be your saving grace.
Totally agree. I think that making sure, which is part of the Rolodexing, what affinity groups is your candidate a part of? Have we gone back and have we maximized it for each of those groups? And can someone from that group introduce you to another group to kind of help galvanize some of that? The other thing is, I think that if you have a group of potential national donors or some people that are kind of on the fence, or they're saying that you don't meet their criteria for giving this cycle, invite them to a donor call where you're giving an update for the state of the race. It is not a huge call. You have a handful of people on there that they probably already know anyway. They join the call, make it quick, leave an opportunity for them to ask any questions. And then that's an opportunity to then follow up. So the candidate doesn't necessarily need to follow up personally, but then on a staff level, you can follow up and say, thank you so much for joining the call. So sorry you were not able to join the call. Happy to send you any information that you may need. So maybe you can get some contributions that way.
Wonderful, thank you. So I wanted to highlight something from the chat. So Jamila from NDTC has dropped in the chat that joining Campaign Staff Academy does have a large network of fundraising alumni. And so I believe they have like a Facebook group. Maybe you can correct me, Jamila or Allison, that you will have access to that should you join the Staff Academy. So that's a resource there. All right, so next question from Tracy. What was the most creative way, besides showing to the candidate's home with a binder, to get the money? How do we get the dollars?
I think it's just call time anywhere, whether it's in the car, whatever, like it just needs to be clear and precise. We have to do call time because donors have to hear from you. They don't want to hear from me from a staff level. They want to hear from you as to why you're asking me to give the money. So I would just genuinely emphasize the call time. Set some scheduled calls up. I get it. Like it's so close to election day. Everybody's burned out. You're burned out from planning for call time. The candidates burned out from making the calls. And so we have to get through this together, but let's set up some scheduled calls. Let's throw in a couple of thank you calls and let's switch up the energy here. What do you do if your candidate gets a max out? What is the one thing that they like and they enjoy? I worked with a candidate who was totally into basketball. So he could only make a slam dunk on his little miniature basketball goal when he got a max out. And so that was his little moment of joy. And it's like, okay, let's do it. Let's get back to it. Let's get another max out. And so I think finding, changing the tempo and finding new energy in the call time space.
It's going to get boring. You just have to push through with call time. I mean, and honestly, like if it works for them, like, you know, if you're walking through New York City between meetings, you just dial for them. You have them laid out in your phone. Like I normally have somebody send me 10 to 20 calls and I'm just like, here you go. Don't talk to me, talk to them. At least call and leave a voicemail. Let's make this like 30 minutes productive. And just to expand beyond call time, events are fantastic. It's a great way to engage not only them, but their networks. And then you can always bring new people into the fold. You have to remember folks are joining through organic engagement and earned media. So they're seeing, you know, your ads on social media. They're seeing that person's name pop up in the paper. They're seeing that person's name come up in, you know, their networks and who they're talking to. So now you have an opportunity as they join in to actually encourage them to join an event, to come to a donor briefing, which is a no money ask event. I love doing those because you just get people in the room and then you have 10 to 20 people that you can gently and politely stalk, you know, to make sure that they know about your candidate and you can, you know, just kind of encourage them to commit. And a lot of folks will give that way just off hearing from the candidates. And now that the world is opened back up, it's something that, you know, as we go into 2023 and into the presidential cycle, you can do also more in person now, which is great because we can, you know, everybody's back outside.
Thank you. I like that, the donor update. I mean, people like to feel included. They like to feel a part of something special. Yeah. All right. So we do have 10 minutes left for questions. So if you have any more questions, please put them in the Q&A so we can answer them for you. So I have a new finance coordinator with the track to be finance director after a few more months. Is there an online support group for women of color and political fundraising?
I don't think there's like a truly organized one. I feel like NDTC definitely has one that they utilize within their alumni network. So since you're here, Candace, please lean into that in the best, most possible way. And congratulations on progressing and really kind of committing. We're excited to see you be the next upcoming amazing finance director. And I think, you know, there are networks, there are ways to get in touch with many of us, to have conversations, do lunch, do a phone call, do a Zoom. And, a lot of times it's on us to build that network ourselves. And, that's something we keep going back to. Take our information, take others as you're meeting them. I'm not sure the level of the race that you are working on. However, if you are going to some of these big D organization like the DGA, D-TRIP, DS, as they are doing like their quarterly meetings and the candidate meetings, find a few folks, some people that okay, county political party. Okay. That for you, I would say leaning in within the state that you're working in, there are other amazing finance directors. If they are not women of color, we will help you find some. I'll connect with you offline. But there are some really great ways. You just have to kind of seek us out right now, which I guess we're also finding that there's a niche to bring more of us together.
I'm not aware of any organizations, but this is obviously a major need. I know when I started in this space, I was seeking to find someone that looked like me whatsoever. And I think to what Akilah said, like when you meet someone, build that relationship and make that bond with the other fellow finance director. But I can't think of an organization off the top of my head.
Sounds like we need to work on one. All right, next question from Andre. As a person in field, how do you apply field knowledge to finance?
You got to have that hustle. One thing with field was finding ways to motivate volunteers. You have to be building shifts to knock doors. That is very similar, if not the same, to the same, you're applying the same principles. You're just transferring those skills over. So remember the same like welcome and personality that you have to have when you're talking to volunteers and showing them gratitude because they are showing up every day for free for you. That is the same thing that these donors are doing for you because they are investing. It's just investing in a different way into the candidates. So I would say really lean into the core principles that you remember from field and that you're utilizing and figure out the best way that's authentic for you to personify those and apply them to finance. Even if you're just starting as a finance assistant, you're going to be doing some research. You may be doing a little bit of call time. You're going to be inviting people to events and doing lots of dials. It's very, very similar to field. You're just talking to a different genre of folks.
I could not agree more. I've had an opportunity to work with quite a few people that transition from field into fundraising, and they are some star finance directors. You're already doing call time. You're already building events. You're already engaging in introducing yourself and introducing your candidate. So to me, it's a very natural transition into a different space on the campaign.
And Andre, shout out to you. We need more Black men in finance. So you find 5 of your friends that look just like you that want to be in this space because we need you all as well. Reflective democracy across all aspects of campaigns is essential.
Thank you. So we have like 1 minute left. And what's the best practice to chase unfulfilled pledges? So that's going to be our last question. And I do want to highlight this one question we have here. Someone asked, would they get our contact information? I'm on LinkedIn. You can look me up, Kimberly Swett. And so let's answer best practices to chase unfulfilled pledges.
Trackers. Like we said, and we've said this entire time, be organized. The worst thing is when your candidate literally contacts you and they're like, who are the last 15 people that we talked to from Chicago when we were there? And you're just like, you need to be able to pull that immediately. If you see that they have not fulfilled it, always document it too. If you are utilizing NGP, document, make a note when you've reached out to them. That's always a good piece for your finance assistant to do, or your call time manager, or whoever is entering those notes from your trips with your candidates. But reaching out to them via email, having the candidate call them. It's great when you do it, but when they hear from the candidate, it sometimes can help create a sense of urgency that does not come with talking to you. And then, a text message, just, hey, it's end of quarter. If there's a big push or a time of urgency on the campaign, a big filing deadline, a quarter ending, that's the time that you can go back to that person, thank them if they've made a partial pledge and they've committed and, they fulfilled that. Can we get the rest of that this month? Would you be able to assist us? It goes a long way.
I would just add, start early as well. You don't have to wait to the final week of the quarter to start chasing your pledges. Start early. And the other thing is, which is part of being organized, if you have a ton of pledges that are out there, does it make sense for your candidate to call through them or set a threshold? So the staff will call anyone that has pledged $50 or less. The staff will take care of that for a pledge chasing. Anyone that is a higher dollar donor for your campaign, have the candidate call and then have staff follow up, but then having a plan in place of how we're going to chase the dollars.
That's fantastic. And I want to add to that NDTC has a spreadsheet that is absolutely fantastic. If you are on a smaller race and you don't have a system like Nation Builder or NGP, you can do it in Google Docs. I've used it for a small race here. I made sure everybody who needed to see it on the campaign had access to it. So they have a fantastic tracker that you can download and use. And I think that's it for all our questions. Well, I have one more question. Phil usually has paid canvassers. Is it a good practice to hire phone bankers to assist with contacting donors? That's an interesting thought. And I'll let the panelists answer that.
You could. It really all depends on your budget. I normally will utilize interns who normally have some sort of stipend, or use our researchers or finance assistants that we already have. However, you do have some folks that really like talking on the phone. You just want to make sure that that person is trained. Just because you can knock doors, it may not mean that you know how to talk to people on the phone. And the last thing you want is to put the wrong person on the phone. It may not end well. So you just want to make sure that you also vet folks to make sure that it's a good fit for you and your finance program.
I would definitely say look at the budget, and like if it's an opportunity, go ahead and pay someone to do it. But do you have volunteers, or do you have donors or potential donors that can't give a lot? They have a ton of time, but they don't have a ton of money to give. And they may have 3 or 4 friends that want a solid block every single Wednesday, 2 until 5 p.m. to kind of do calls. So will this take care of your need, or do you need additional bodies to make the calls? So I kind of will look at all the scenarios, whether it's someone paid or someone not paid.
Thank you so much to our panelists for answering those questions. And thank you to our participants for asking those wonderful, thought-provoking questions. We truly appreciate you guys for being here. Good luck with your races, and thank you guys for being the awesome individuals you guys are.
Hi, I'm Sung Chung, a program associate on NDTC Staff Academy team. To keep learning, check out more of our training videos and sign up for our full catalog at traindemocrats.org. Thanks for watching.